Hi everyone, I am Megha Agrawal and I'll be hosting today's panel discussion as the moderator. On behalf of ANI Jaipur chapter, I welcome you all to this online event and where we are going to discuss a very relatable topic of balancing autonomy with accountability. I hope to make this session engaging and I hope you enjoy this as much as you would have enjoyed an in-person event. Also, a quick disclaimer, this is my first event as a moderator, so please bear with me if I stumble. And I apologize in advance for any technical glitches that we might have. With that, I think we'll begin this discussion with a quick round of introductions. I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll hand it over to the panel for introductions. Let me quickly share my screen with you guys. So I am Megha Agrawal. I work with the Curtis Corporation as Director PMO with specialization in product management. I am an active contributor in ideation, planning, and overall implementation of holistic suite of apps that we offer in the hospitality domain. But currently, our focus is on cruise line industry. To bring it back to its foot after the COVID situation. The core value is to revolutionize and enhance the overall guest experience for people in hospitality domain. I'm very passionate towards product innovation and transformational experience technology, which in current times is driven by niche tech like location and proximity and stuff like that. I'm a safe agile enthusiast, a budding enthusiast. I absolutely enjoy the process of PI planning and execution, and that makes me enjoy working with diversified teams and cross-functional teams. I am well traveled. I enjoy traveling. I'm an avid reader, and who's not a Netflix addict these days? That's about me. So with that, I will hand over my virtual mic to Anil so he can introduce himself. Anil, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Megha. Hello, everyone. Hope you are having a great morning today. This is Anil Pilania here. I am Managing Director at Horizontal Digital, responsible for leading their Salesforce practice here in India. I was born in a small city of Chirawa in the Jhunjhunu district in Rajasthan. I'm a computer science graduate, and I did my post graduation from Royal Holloway University of London. And if this name doesn't ring any bells, you may want to go check out movies like Basic Instinct or the recently released movie of Varun Dhawan and Taapsee Pannu, which was a remake of Judwa 2. Both movies were shot in my university. I worked at very big enterprises such as HP, Hewlett Packard, Accenture, Appirio, and now I am at Horizontal Digital, which is a global premium boutique consulting firm and digital agency. I am a sports lover. I pretty much play anything and everything I can get my hands on, even though I don't know the rules or I don't know how to play. I just can't hold myself back. So a very deep sports lover. My leadership style has always been leading by example. I think that works really well for me. Just guiding and having conversations around doing something don't usually get me excited. But when I get my hands dirty and I get an opportunity to lead by example, is what I prefer all the time. My inspiration has always been my team, always. I have always got inspiration from whatever little good things or bad things they do, how they go about doing their work, their approach to their teams, and all the behaviors that they exhibit. I seek my inspiration from them. And finally, my mantra in my life has been that knowledge is not enough unless you apply, and willingness is not enough unless you do. Bruce Lee once said it, and this is the mantra that I follow in my everyday life, personally as well as professionally. And thank you for having me, ANI, today. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. That's a lot of Bollywood and Hollywood references. Moving to Anu. Anu, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Megha. My name is Anu. I am an human resource development practitioner, and I've been in industry for around 5 plus years, and it majorly has been IT. And currently, I'm handling the overall staffing, the capital management, the PMS, the organization development, and operational activities for my organization. Kind of, I'm responsible for strategizing the whole processes, the ideas, and how to implement them. And I'm kind of handling an organization. Kind of handling a team of employees and the recruiters and the overall.
Thank you, Anu. Did we lose you? Thank you, Anu. Thank you for that. Welcome to the panel. Now I will hand it over to Deepak. Deepak, welcome to the panel.
Thanks, Megha. Friends, I'm Deepak, lead architect at the Curtis Corporation. So I have around 17 years of experience working, in technologies, and I have expertise in developing enterprise applications with service-oriented, event-driven, cloud cloud-based microservices architecture. So other than that, I have expertise in enterprise application integration patterns as well, and technology. However, always keep myself busy with playing tax. I will try to add, an architect perspective to the today's topic.
Awesome. It's great to have you, Deepak. That's an amazing smile in that picture. Moving on, Vikram, welcome to the panel. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, Vikram.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I'm a principal consultant with EQS, Enterprise Political Solutions Group within Infosys. So I'm here in Infosys for last 15 years. Overall, I'm in IT services for last 21 years. I'm a well-traveled person, been in US and Europe. So I've worked with multiple banking uh, big titans like Barclays, HSBC, World Bank, and so, and everywhere it has been about this journey about digital transformation, about agile transformation. So I have been working on that in that consulting into defining new ways of working with focus on organization-wide transformation, finding out a new operating model for the stakeholders. So my work has been mostly with the senior leadership of these companies, and also I engage with the internal leadership and the teams within Infosys to imbibe that transformation which Infosys is going through in Agile. So that is what I do, redesign the organization to imbibe Agile and DevOps culture, and something about change management, which is about the culture and the mindset. On a personal side, I am in Jaipur for last 8 years, and I am a sports enthusiast too. I love to play table tennis and cricket. That is about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikram. Uh, Welcome everyone
Thank
to
you.
the panel. It's great to have all the different perspectives. So let's quickly begin today's discussion now that we have done with introductions. I think what we'll do is I'll begin with a brief on the topic on why we selected this particular topic and why it's relevant in today's sense, and then we'll start with questions. So our topic today is balancing autonomy with accountability, and I think in current times, many organizations are embracing to the agile ways of working to adapt to constant change in market. And the market is changing not in terms of technology, but also, the idea of innovation is changing at a speed. And it becomes difficult to cope up with this constant shift in paradigm and constant shift if you stick to traditional ways. This change is not only demands for a skilled task force, but I think it also demands for a culture where people working at the grassroots level are able to make their own decisions. And this is what we reference as autonomy in agile or autonomy in general sense. And I think a lot has been said and written about autonomy and the fact that autonomous teams are self motivated and productive. But at the same time, it has also been observed that it can become challenging if this autonomy is not counterbalanced with accountability or alignment. And that's what our topic entails today. So with that, I will post my first question to Vikram. Vikram, what do you think is autonomy in your understanding, or how is autonomy exercised in your organization?
Okay. Well, autonomy, I believe it's something to do with uh, a zone that you give into employees so that they can come up with the solutions, they can come up with their own decision, uh, right? And they can be very proud of that. So there is some kind of autonomy, some kind of purpose that is given to employees to flex upon within their zone, yet being very aligned to the larger uh, goals of the organization. So if you think about the framework from Daniel Pink about this autonomy, mastery, purpose framework, autonomy plays a very vital role. It is not about the money part always. It's also how you keep your employees happy while you are giving them a room to experiment. When you imbibe the cultures of trust and open communication, so I would feel they are in their own control of destiny. They are self-motivated. They are driven by solutions they want to bring to the table and own some of the things. So that is what I call or define as autonomy. And in my organization, Infosys, we are doing a lot of transformation, and there is a kind of servant leadership that uh, we have been working with the leadership, so they are no more of a micromanaged leadership or PMOs. They are strong supporters of agile transformation within this the change that we are leading to, and we are giving thrust and space to our employees to experiment upon, to fail fast. That is it. Thank you.
That's great for an organization like Infosys to change its ways of working. I think it's really encouraging. So Anil, over to you next. What do you think about this? Anil, you're on mute.
Thank
Yep.
you. Well, to me, the autonomy is the freedom to act independently. It's it's a desire to drive oneself, um, and in some sense, this is also a right of an individual, of a team, or an organization to govern their own actions in its literal sense. So autonomy, when not put in any context, it is about empowerment and ability to make your own decision and do things the way one wants to do or a team wants to do. But when put into a context, autonomy has a slightly different meaning. Autonomy is about that I agree what we need to do, but I will do it in my own way. You know, so there is always an agreement with respect to what we need to do, but there is always a freedom to let that individual or a team to do that in their own unique way and still within the boundary of the agreed want. So autonomy is a good thing. I agree with Vikram that in today's experience economy, where organizations are struggling big times to retain and engage their employees, and especially in the ecosystem like India, we still rely heavily on decade-old ways to retain and engage employees, such as money, such as growth, such as additional responsibility, etc., etc. But I think we have been continuously overlooking that these avenues are no longer the answer to the questions of engaging and keeping your employees. The new answer is helping them become autonomous. Make give them an empowerment and a feel that they can do things their own way, but yet keeping them within the guardrails of defined goal, vision, and mission of your business units, of your organization, of your company. So to me, that's the autonomy.
Thank you, Anil. I think it's very interesting you spoke about autonomy with guardrails, right? Or a company's mission or a goal and a clarity around that. So I think that's very much is the second aspect of our topic, which is accountability. And accountability is a equally broadly defined word as autonomy, right? People can have their own definition of accountability, and company can have their own models to exercise accountability. So Deepak, I would like to ask you next. What do you think your organization or your place of work drives accountability or exercises accountability within teams? Deepak, you are on mute as well. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. So yeah,
No.
Mega. So we agree that autonomy is the need for today's modern workplaces. But without this, as you said, the counterbalancing autonomy with accountability, so we cannot achieve anything. So, and we also learned this thing in our organization in a very hard way. So, like as I said, I'm an architect, and I see very radical shift in software development methodologies in last decades. So basically, when I started, exploring agile, so as it happens with most of the other streams as well, that I see it naturally fitting with the modern architecture practices. So we went for decentralized decision making. We agreed to have less controls on team and provide teams autonomy to take their decisions. But soon we found that we landed from a centralized accountability to a place where actually there was no accountability. So nobody knows, like what are their goals and what they are trying to achieve. So that was creating a lot of chaos in started creating a lot of chaos in our organization. So basically, our so-called autonomous teams had no idea how many more iterations would be required to actually go do the go live releases. So there we realized that we are doing something wrong, and then we started looking back again that what needs to be done to improve these things. So there we learned that basically autonomous team require kind of alignments with the wider objectives. So they should have accountabilities, not just the autonomies. So now the question came that who will decide the accountabilities for those teams. So like, are some central governing bodies going to decide their accountabilities? Because we saw that accountability is missing, but how we bring those accountabilities to our organization. So there we did a little bit research, and like we found a model, like in our democracy, Indian democracy, so we have state government, so they are autonomous government, right? But like there is no central government that is deciding their accountabilities. It's the state government. They themselves define their accountabilities and then work for 5 years to reach or to meet those accountability. So same model we try to implement in our organization. So we let the team to decide their accountabilities, and then we develop a framework to monitor those accountabilities and to align those accountabilities of teams with the organization level accountabilities. So once we start focusing on accountabilities and monitoring of those accountabilities, so we saw getting result of that. So we, as a result, we got autonomous team with accountabilities, with teams are trying to work for their accountabilities, and all are moving towards a centralized common goal.
Awesome, awesome. So it's something that that is coming from experience, right? That you in your organization have been on a journey where you started with a lot of freedom and autonomy, but realized that maybe accountability is equally important to make sure everything works right, right? Uh,
Exactly.
do we still have Anu on the panel? I can't see her. I know she was facing some internet issues. Just give me a second. No, Anu's not here. Okay, so I think she has some
Okay.
I think she has some internet issues. So let's
So,
in that case.
Meg-
Is anyone saying something?
yeah,
No,
just to
sorry.
add for that,
Yeah, Vikram, carry on.
yeah. So just to add, so basically there needs to be balance of autonomy and accountability in the modern times that we live in, where the innovation is the theme for most of the companies. Otherwise, you will be taken away from the market. So if you think about a grid, a quadrant, if you have low autonomy and low accountability, that's more of micromanagement zone. You have high autonomy and you have low accountability, that's more of a chaos zone. And you have low autonomy and high accountability, that is more of a bureaucracy, authoritative kind of work. Now, the only zone that people or the companies want to pursue is more about high autonomy and high accountability, which is where you have innovations coming up. So if you think about that, that is where we need to draw some balance. Some of the companies or some of the regulated companies may not have that kind of balance, because pharmaceutical, defense, research, and all that, you can't be very much balance about autonomy. You need to play more of accountability role. So you need to fall in line. You need to have a well audit system there, right? If you do not have, then people will drive their own ways of working, and though they are aligned, that might not be fetching you the results. So you have to be more accountable in that. So some of the industries, it might be so that you can't practice more agile, you need to be more accountable. But some of the places like finance and all that, in finance also you are quite regulated. So what I'm saying is there has to be some balance, but it also depends on the context and the industry that you are in. That's it.
Yeah, so you're almost answering one of the questions I had in my mind next, but going back to Deepak, you mentioned that with experience you learned that accountability needs to be, autonomy needs to be balanced with accountability. And Anil, you also spoke about having company missions and goals. So Anil, my next question to you is, do you think that there is a possibility that if there is not balance between autonomy and accountability in an organization, then it might lead to chaos, or it might derail teams in the long run to achieve their goals?
Yes, absolutely. So anything heavier on either side of this pendulum is going to create problems, and we can talk about different scenarios. If in an environment which is autonomy heavy. So I had this team member some time ago. He was probably the best at what he did, but he wanted to work in his own time, right? And that's the autonomy. We always gave him the work, and he has the freedom to choose when and how he would like to go about it, and he'll keep to his commitments, right? And he did that very consistently. However, after some time, we realized that his preference of doing the work is starting 10 p.m. and going until 4 a.m. That's the time where he does his work. And he was able to do his work, but there was a side effect of it. He was not available when the team needed him, when the team needed his help, or when the team needed um, to tell him something that he should be taking into consideration in his work. So, was there autonomy? Yes. But did this autonomy yielded the exact outcome that we were looking for? No. There was still a team which wasn't satisfied, because someone exercised his autonomy in his own way, which was not aligned with the team's way of working or team's goal and outcome in that sense. So it did not work. Now, having an accountability without autonomy, is stupid. So we can hold someone accountable that, oh well, you need to do this, but in order for you to do this, whatever you need to come to me and ask for it. That's like, you are asking someone with disability to do things, without giving him the empowerment and authority to procure anything and everything that he or she needs to be able to do that, right? It's just plain stupid. So it doesn't work that way either. And that's where this idea of balancing both the acts comes in. And that's where, when I said earlier that, giving autonomy or building autonomous teams within the guardrails of company goals or team goals or the project goals is extremely important, because that's when, people will have the freedom to do the things the way they want to do. At the same time, they'll have that larger picture and that alignment with the team goal, project goal, and the organization goal. And whenever someone talks about it, I always remember what Steve Jobs has once said. He said that, we don't hire smart, intelligent people so that they can come and we can tell them what to do, right? We hire them so that they can come and they tell us what to do. So the biggest disadvantage of not having an autonomous team is, you kill a lot of ideas before even someone open his or her mouth, right? So for example, let's say you are in a group conversation and you are telling your teams, hey guys, we need to increase our, let's say, website visit by 10%, right? Versus you tell them, hey guys, you know what, we need to do, build this page, put this cool video, and they should be up and running in 7 days. So the outcome of both the task is the same, but the later task is where you are telling people what to do. You're not giving them the space and the opportunity to come up with ideas, or maybe doing something different that could be way better than what you are asking them to do. So that got killed right then and there. But in the earlier one where you are saying, hey, we need to do this, and you are free to do, whatever you want to do, as long as the end result is this. And that's where you just opened up the space for people to be creative, people to be self-driven. And that's where, you have engaged teams, you have better ideas from the team. And that's where your teams and individuals feel in charge, and that drives a sense of pride, a sense of fulfillment, and eventually drives into higher employee engagement as well as retention. So yes, it is absolutely necessary to create the balance between autonomy and accountability. I would rather call it that autonomy with an alignment with the individual goals, project goals, team goals, organization goals, is where it drives the accountability. And speaking of accountability in silo, I think accountability has a lot to do with mindset, right?
Mhm.
So there are they so when we say, data can speak the story that you want it to tell, right? Similarly, for anyone, they always have an explanation for things that they did and for things they did not do, and those explanations are always right because they are telling their stories. But that's when the actual meaningful definition of accountability comes in, where accountability is a mindset, where
Mhm.
I'm not just looking at my own task, with the focus. I'm looking at the holistic picture, and I'm thinking that, how my task is going to contribute towards that bigger outcome. And I'm not thinking, or I have stopped thinking about how my task is going to create that outcome just for me. And that's just a
Mhm.
mindset shift. So if people have that mindset shift and that if they have the balance between autonomy and accountability, and they have the right alignment with the goals, we can also refer to them as guardrails, is where the teams thrive.
Great. I think what you say strikes a chord. What I think sometimes is that everyone wants autonomy for themselves and accountability for others. It's very easy to ask for freedom or to demand for freedom and hold others accountable for stuff that they have to deliver. So totally agreed that a balance of accountability with autonomy is something that's needed. But I know we've talked about that, but just want to understand in simpler terms. You guys, all of you, playing different roles in your organization. How do you define accountability? Like, I understand that you set company goals and you expect your teams to align with those goals. But if I ask you at an individual level, if you are talking to an individual and if you ask them to brief that they need to be accountable, how do you do that in daily needs? Like, do you set a definition of done for them? Do you set like milestones for them? So how do you define it for your teams? Other than the fact that yes, you need to be accountable, how do you help them understand that this is how they can be accountable, or this is what you will see that they are being accountable? So maybe Vikram, would you want to answer that?
Okay, yeah, wonderful. So yes, accountability is something which is driven from the very top of it. Bottoms up, it's more of ownership, and that is where is autonomy. So top down, bottom up, when they meet, that is how you drive the momentum. Okay, so basically autonomy goes with alignment, and that is how you become more accountable. The milestones, as you said, the metrics, as you said, yes, they are the guardrails. There are end objectives, there are KPIs, there are initiatives from the very top. Initiatives break down into themes, and themes uh, based on the priority of the themes. Then you settle down to the teams, and product owners will come in the agile world and tell what is that they want to build, which direction they have to move in, what kind of work is expected out of them. So what is defined from the very top of it comes down, trickle down to the teams by the what part. Now that what closes there, it is now the how part. The how part is now given to the teams to decide how to drive that end, right? How to meet that end. How do you have to get to that line of meeting that? So basically, you have DOD, definition of done, in the agile world, which is being developed by the core team, saying that these are the tasks they need uh, to complete before they call it as done. That is their definition of done, and then it has to strike a balance with the acceptance criteria met or defined by the product owner. So the goals are defined by product owner coming from the top, and they are in the shape of acceptance criteria. The team comes up with their own definition of done. Once they kind of intertwine this and they meet this, that is how they meet the criteria of amalgamation of what is to be done from top down and bottom up. So that's what I say. There are metrics, there are guardrails, and there are objectives. These are certainly at the team level, at the program level, at the portfolio level. These are other things where you can see the progression of the teams towards a
Mhm.
larger goal.
Okay, awesome. So Deepak, do you have any thoughts there? Like, how have you, uh, if you have had a chance, how have you communicated this to your team, and how have you briefed your teams about the importance of being accountable while they enjoy the autonomy that is being given by an organization or a leader? So have you had any conversations with your team upfront in this regard?
Yeah, Mega, definitely. Like, these conversations comes a lot of time, and what we target is that we should have a centralized governance body that always help these autonomous team to define their goals. So teams should not be allowed to define their goals. So goals should be defined with the help of centralized body, but teams should be allowed to the path, they're allowed to choose their path to achieve those their goals. So that's where we always try to align those autonomous team with the organizational ultimate goal. That's what
Mhm.
we always.
Okay. I think the next question that
Before
we
we go there, Mega, I just
Mhm.
wanted to add how I try something similar in my group, if we have time.
No, sure, go ahead, go ahead.
So I've tried both approaches in the past. Usually as the corporations work, you have the bigger goal at the corporation level, and then that goals gets drilled down and it reaches to an individual. So it's usually referred as top-down approach. So when I tried this with my teams in the past, what eventually happens is when you are telling them, hey, look, these are the goals,
Mhm.
right? You haven't sought their true commitment to those goals because they may be disinterested in some of the goals as they may not align with their personal aspirations in some sort. And for some of the other roles, they may feel that they are not rightly empowered or supported so that they can achieve. But since the approach is a top-down approach, they always say, okay, right? So that's been one way of working in corporations. The other thing that I have tried and I continue to practice that since last few years is we try to change it to bottoms up in the sense that just tell them that, hey guys, this is the goal of our team or our group or our company for this year, right? Just those one or two liners. And then we ask them to come up with their own goals and tell us how do they think they can contribute towards this, bigger goal at a team level or at an
Mhm.
organization level, right? So they still know the context, they still know the holistic outcome that their goal should contribute towards, but we are not telling them anymore what they need to do, right? So they go back, they think about it, and they come up with their own ideas on goals, and they say, hey, Anil, you know what, if I do these three things in this quarter, I think these three things will contribute towards our team goal and the organization goal. And since those ideas and goals are coming from that individual, we already have sort an implicit commitment from that individual because that person has thought a lot about it, about his interests, about his own personal aspirations, about what kind of empowerment he has that will enable him to achieve that goal, what kind of support that he can expect he will get in order to get those goals achieved. So he has thought through all of those ideas, and then he or she has come up to you saying, these are my goals, which will eventually contribute towards the larger goal. So we have that implicit commitment. Since they have come up with that those goals, they already have an accountability towards those. We no longer have to remind them these are their goals. They will remind themselves that this is what they have committed to. And this approach has been extremely fruitful for me personally and even in my organization. This approach has given these guys to work in an autonomous way. This approach has empowered them to come up with their own ideas, and hence, they feel engaged, and they also feel and get that sense of achievement as they complete those. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Yeah, I think that's great perspective, and it's very interesting that how everyone very organically talks about a quarter these days when we talk about goals and not annual or semi-annual goals. So that also tells a shift in paradigm where everything from annual has moved to quarter or monthly now. So that's also very interesting to hear about. I know it's a separate topic of its own, but yeah. So definitely a takeaway is that how an organization sets goal for itself and how individuals align with that goals and take away their goals from it is something that really helps. And I think Shantanu also has some very interesting things to say in the chat. One thing he said is accountability is the obligation to explain, justify, and take responsibility for one's action. Definitely. And he also says not only acceptance criteria in Scrum World, but sprint goal, which is outcome, should, focus should provide the direction. Thank you, Shantanu, for that feedback. Moving on to the next question, Vikram, my question to you is that you briefly touched upon the fact that a finance organization might have a different ways of working than an IT organization. So a very similar question to carry on with that thought process is: do you think this concept of aligned autonomy or autonomy with accountability is more relevant and applicable to a small scale IT industry? Or do you think this is a concept relevant to all other industries in a similar way as well?
Uh, See, as I mentioned earlier, it is a matter of contextuality of the industry that we are in. So basically, if you look at most regulated companies, pharmaceutical, defense, research, space, right, you cannot be 50% autonomous, 50% accountable, right? You may need to have more of accountability at that time. So that is based on the context of the industry that you are in. But let's say you are in a, and that does not matter size of your organization. So if you have to go by a safe, a scaled agile thing, then you have to have mix of both, a balance of it. You cannot be, if you don't have accountability, you are like a train with no guardrails, and you are kind to get derailed. So while you talk about those trains and aggregated trains and all that, but you have to define a top down approach where these kind of high level objectives or goals are mentioned to the teams. What is that they need to pursue, what product they need to venture into, what is the end objective of that product, why we need to get into the what and why of that product. Then once that what and why, the vision part of it is understood, then only, so that is what defines accountability, that as a team you are okay in your area, in your room, to what you want, but you have to be aligned, your objectives have to be aligned to the larger objectives of the organization. And that is where the room that is given to you to play around, that is given the autonomy. So to solutionize the how part, how do you have to work towards that, what part is your autonomous zone. So you need to strike a balance of that. And it doesn't matter the size of it, the scale of it. The large organizations are doing large scale enterprise transformations by scaled agile. So we have seen that. I've seen a DAD framework. We talked about that, but that framework also being used in Barclays. You worked with Barclays also. So DAD, disciplined agile framework is being used there. HSBC, they are using that. People are using SAFe also. So many of the regulatory companies, financials are also regulatory. They also have legal compliance to work with. They also have guardrails. You can't do something bypassing legal, bypassing the compliance of the country, right? All that. So the guardrails are well defined. You cannot do away with that. You are accountable, but within the team, you are given authority to define and solutionize and be very experimental on that.
Mhm.
So a balance is required, but it also depends on the context of the industry that you are in.
Okay, awesome. I think what I understand from what we've discussed so far is that when a balance is achieved, irrespective if you being an IT organization, a startup, a tech startup, maybe a NGO or a hospital, you need to define how this balance works for you, and it can be applicable for you if you have your goals set clear, and if your teams are motivated and encouraged to make their own decisions. So that's what I understand from what we've discussed so far. And I think in the favor of time, because we're already at 11:30 and we would want to save some time for Q&A in the end, let's talk about uh, all of you are working at a place in your organization where you are either being a leader or you are at a place of influence where you can influence your management, your middle management, or you're part of your governance body, right? Who can set up this system in your place of work. So from that perspective now, I want to ask you, maybe Anil will begin with you. What do you think are some measures that an organization should take to achieve this balance? You've already talked about goals, I think. You already talked about how you've done it in your organization. But apart from goals, do you want to add something to it? What should an organization do to strike this balance?
I think the answer truly lies in practicing, right?
Mhm.
Picking probably is the easiest thing to do for any individual who has the knowledge. They can preach that knowledge, but putting that knowledge to practice is probably the hardest thing. And in every organization, just like our childhood, everyone has to crawl first before they can walk, and everyone has to walk first before they can run. So to me, the idea of autonomy or aligned autonomy and creating the balance with accountability has a different definition at a crawl level than walk level and at a run level. So when we talk about teams which are self-managed, you cannot reach that status if you in your organization have started practicing and incubating the concepts of accountability and autonomy when your employees are crawling, right? And that definition could vary. You know, autonomy could be smallest thing in your organization when you are telling your people that, okay, you are in charge of your schedule every day, right? You don't have to work 10 to 6 anymore. You are in charge as long as you get this piece of work done. That's your commitment, that's your accountability. So it can start from, you know, smallest thing like this when your organization or your team um, is in that crawling phase. And once they learn this, now you can widen up the very definition of accountability and autonomy, because now the trust will start building up between you and your team members and among the team members. So as the trust goes up, you can start widening up the very definition of autonomy. You know, you can make them more autonomous. And then as they get ready to run, you know, you can further widen this definition. But you cannot have this widened definition right when everyone is crawling, and that's when the organizations will get into chaos mode. So what measures can you do? First, you know, don't just talk about it, start practicing it is, I would say. The second thing I would recommend is, you know, bottom driven. So the idea of alignment is really cool, but do we really practice this alignment? I have seen so many organizations talk about, hey, we have a very cool and self-managed Scrum team in IT companies. And when I ask them, hey, can you just, you know, sneak into a couple of their stand-ups and see how that stand-up is driven? More than 90% of the time, you will find out that maybe 2 or 3 team members who really are self-managed are actually driving that stand-up. And if that is the case, it's not a self-managed autonomous team, right? From the outside, it may look like that, but in reality, from the inside, it is not like that. So that means they are still not at there. So that's where the idea of, you know, giving them the broader picture, the broader goal and the objective, and let them come up how they can contribute, even if it is a smallest piece they think can contribute in that direction. That should be the starting point. And you should do periodical connects and catch ups and reviews to see what they have committed. Are they living up to that commitment? Are they feeling accountable for that? So that those would be my advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think everyone can relate to that. I have been part of those scrums and stand-ups where it's almost being driven by one person. So I can relate to that. Deepak, would you want to add on to that in your place of work? What measures you think are being taken or should be taken to to make sure teams are striking this balance?
So I think, Mega, we have started, uh, implementing these things in our organization, and as Anil said, so we are practicing and trying to, improve things. So, the other challenge that we, face is like how much autonomy should be given to, teams. So some teams are basically, more matured, and some teams are not to that mature, and you cannot just, ask those teams to decide their goals and then, try to get them achieved. So they need, more guidance towards, achieving their goals. So like when you go for practical implementation, so you have to, look into, lot of other factors as well before, embracing, total autonomy to your teams, or, just leaving them on their own. So that also, things that needs to be considered when you are practically implementing things.
Okay, yes. That makes sense. And Vikram, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, what I say is great leaders learn to balance autonomy and accountability, and to maintain the balance, it is more important in the growth mindset, of the organizations. You need to be very innovative. So if you need to be innovative, you need to get into that growth mindset. To be very innovative, you need to give a zone of accountability and autonomy to the team. So for autonomy of the team, you need to have a coaching aspect. You need to handhold them for a while. So you need to have a powerful leaders who are influencers, who are coaches for them embedded within the team. So that coaching fraternity can help. Then there's a lot of changing market, right? Market is changing every day. There's new open source tools and all that. So you need to have some kind of learnability within the organization, some kind of a platform like we have in Infosys, a Lex platform, where we give our employees on mobile, on go learnability. Any topic they can go and just search upon and get engaged, and they can pick up the knowledge upon. So some kind of coaching, some kind of platform they can pick up the knowledge from as they go. And also some of the HR practices also have to be developed, so that these kind of employee friendly goals are also aligned. So HR aspect also has to be taken into account, so that their yearly goals or quarterly or half yearly goals are also put up in a very agile attuned ecosystem. So we need to provide that kind of ecosystem for the innovation to thrive.
Yes, thank you so much. And I know, and you spoke about coaching and HR, and for that perspective, we had Anu on board. She has a HR background, and we wanted to hear her perspective from human side of it. That what she thinks is for employees or is for team to be at the receiving end of it at times, but unfortunately she is facing some networking issues and her audio is not working. So so we would end up hearing about that perspective, but yes, let's move on. So I think we have, in the interest of time, we have 25 minutes left, and I see a few questions from the audience. So are you guys all right if we start picking up these questions? Okay.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
let me let me randomly pick question from Karan. Uh, Karan is asking, what are the challenges to shift the mindset of organization to be autonomous or accountable? And I think we have briefly talked about it. Anil and Vikram, both of you have briefly explained how goals are important. But I think Karan's question is very interesting in terms of what are the challenges that organization might face, or a management or a leader might face in exercising that. So Anil, would you want to brief on that?
Sure. A very interesting question indeed. I personally do not think that organizations even do not think about not delegating the autonomy. It's not in their interest. I'm not. I've worked 4 or 5 organizations, and I know they had their own challenges, but I've never come across or heard that any organization minds the autonomy unless that organization culture is not up to the mark. What holds organization back from practicing this is us, the employees, the managers, or the middle management. or some individuals who crave for control, and it's very hard for them to delegate the decision making and then infuse the idea of autonomy. So it's the people. And sometimes these people end up implementing those ideas in the tools, and the systems then start enforcing the same thing. And we as an employee perceive that it's an organizational mindset. And that's where organization is not encouraging autonomy. I do not think that's the case. How can you change even if such a thing exists in any of the organization? Start at the ground root level. I love so much my team members, even if they are very new to the industry, if they raise their hand and say, you know what, I take the accountability to do this, and I'll do whatever it takes. And I will be very surprised if I come across any person who will say no to that. If someone raises his or her hand and someone says no, I'll be very surprised to meet such people, because we all need to do more. And in order for us to do more, the best thing that we can do is delegate the autonomy to our team members. So my suggestion is, if you want to change the organizational culture slash, if you call it mindset, then start at the ground level. And then two, when you see that someone or any system is not letting that infusion taking place, you challenge it, right? You talk to whoever you need to talk to, and you can tell it not as a complaint that it is not working. You need to tell them, look, this is what I want to do, and it is coming in my way, right? And then you agree to do something. It's a very slow process. It is very easier to say it than put it into practice, but someone has to start somewhere. So start at the ground level, slowly, steadily, practice every day consistently, and keep challenging those systems and people who come in the way. I think that's the way to go about it. The other downside that organization may perceive is, if they give too much autonomy to someone, it is going to create chaos. It does, right? We often hear a lot of news in newspapers and in media that some executive made certain decisions, and which backfired, and it hit the organization really badly. So those are the classic cases where autonomy was given without putting those checks and balances in place, without putting that alignment in place with the organizational goal. So those kind of things play on organizations' mind, where they, are conservative at times to delegate too much autonomy. But when you start ground up, you build that trust. I think they will be more than happy to widen up that spectrum of autonomy.
Thank you for that answer, Anil. And Vikram, would you want to talk about any particular challenge? I think you work in a role of agile coach, and you said you have implemented this for various clients. Would you want to talk about any specific challenge, like not in a generic sense, but any specific challenge you faced while you were trying to
Yeah.
implement this for a team?
Yeah, so basically challenges on this are mostly do with human factors, the cultural aspect, the mindset. It's all about people, and people are at all levels. So while we talk about all levels, and actually the culture comes from walk the talk type of it. So if the leader himself is kind of uh, having a personal agenda into the entire pursuit, then there are inter units kind of agendas also within the company, right? So all this right trickles down to the organizational politics, and so basically you talk about culture and mindset as a shift. But for culture and mindset, these kind of human factors, the ego part, the politics part, play a vital role in derailing that. So inter
Mhm.
conflicts, personal agendas. Then like classic case about recently, trust is a basic system for any autonomous zone. So with this COVID, you would see earlier there was a lot of inhibitions about remote working. How would teams participate in remote ways of working? Would they be able to scale up? So slowly that trust has been built by design over the past few months, where nevertheless you have to work through remote only, and they have shown the results despite that. So that trust took some time to develop. So initially the challenge was how to have that kind of system set up while they're working distributed and remote. So these are only by design special cases that come up, but larger things are about people aspects. So if you have leadership coaching also in your company, who can lead the management, the top management, and they can keep them informed, and how the walk the talk would help, how they leading from the front will help, right, to have that culture seed into the team, but the percolation will help much faster.
Yep. So I think all of us agree that coaching and training plays a very, very important part in any kind of challenge in terms of mindset or in terms of lack of understanding that people or organization might face. And I think Vikram, we touched upon the remote working that's happening today, and Priyank also has a question in this regard. His question is, what are the challenges faced with autonomy in remote setup? So Deepak, do you want to share your views on that? Um, do you think in current remote setup there are challenges that are being faced by you and your teams?
So Mega, I am totally working in the IT industry, and there, remote working is not a new thing. So it's not that much challenging if you consider, the IT industry. But yeah, there may be challenges, in other industries.
Okay. Anu, I am getting a message that you are online now. Anu, are you here? No, I still cannot hear her. So I will move on to the next question. We still have around 15 minutes, and let's pick up the next question from Shantanu, where he's asking. It's a long question, so let me read it out. How do you support some of the leaders' thoughts of team should have autonomy, but they should follow Scrum? What about they can very well achieve the goals and vision through Kanban or something else? Do the leaders allow them to fail and learn and become better in Kanban or whatever they want to do, or the leader move them to Scrum as they are comfortable with that only? So very, very debatable and a current topic about Scrum versus Kanban. So would one of you like to pick this up? Anil, would you want to answer this?
I can take up only the first half of it, and then I'll pass on to Vikram. He's the expert in Scrum and Kanban.
Mhm.
How do you support some of the leaders' thoughts of team should have autonomy, but they should follow Scrum? Honestly, I don't think there is any relationship between autonomy or following Scrum or Kanban or something else. The very idea of autonomy is agree upfront to do something and then let the team, you can call it a Scrum team or any other team, go back and do it, let them do it their own way. So if they want to do it a Scrum way, great. If you want to do it Kanban way, great. But I don't see a very close relationship between these two. To the second part of your question, Scrum versus Kanban, Vikram, would you like to help me here a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm not very clear on what is the relationship between Scrum, Kanban, and leadership. The only thing is these are the frameworks, and frameworks have their own scope of work. So Scrum works in a development work where you have something to develop over sprint by sprint, iteration by iteration. And Kanban as a framework is more suited for some kind of ticketing, production support kind of system where you have inflow and outflow, and you need to balance that with some kind of work in progress limits that you can set up. So that is what describes these two frameworks. Now it is left to the team based on the suitability of the work. If it's more production support ticket support heavy, maintenance heavy, then they can very well go for Kanban. If it is more to do with some kind of a feature development, more suited within progression or product development and all that, right from scratch, they can go for Scrum.
Okay. I know Shantanu had to leave, but I hope we answered the question for everyone else. And okay, uh, my question to Anu again. Priyank is constantly nudging me to ask a question to Anu. Anu, are you back online? Nope. This was my last attempt, so we will miss her. Uh, Vikram. Priyank had a follow-up question with you. Did you see that? Can you explain more about Kanban from your experiences, Vikram?
Okay, so basically Kanban, in my experience, is more to do, as I said, in a ticket-based environment, in a production support environment, where you have some kind of a inventory of right, a heap of some kind of tickets coming in, and there is a flow. Somewhere there is a surge, somewhere you have a very lull period. So you need to strike a balance between that. For Scrum world, you can have your velocity set up, you can have your defined people, and then how much you can take up. But in the Kanban way, you need to work with some kind of priority, some kind of channels, and some kind of a level up work in progress limit that you can set up on your boards, on the columns on the board, so that you can take up high priority, high visibility, high valued items first, and which have to be released, which have to be fixed very soon. So it is all about maintaining a balance and shuffling between development, testing, and other priorities. You can have teams swarming together. Swarming means the sense they have something very high critical. They all work towards that, leaving everything aside. So this is a zone of some kind of a support kind of function, which cannot be done after every 2 to 3 weeks. It needs to be done as soon as possible. So in that kind of environment is mostly my experience with uh, that. So Kanban fits into that direction.
Thank you. I hope that answers Priyank's question. And I would go back to a question from RC Goyal, which is again a very interesting question, which he says, and I think we've briefly talked about this. His question is, how do you ensure clarity of translation of an organization's objective? What I mean through is open house or town hall. So Deepak, would you want to answer this? Does your organization host town halls and open house, and do you think that's encouraged by employees and they actively participate to that?
Yeah, Mega. So it basically depends on the structure of the town halls as well. But so basically the senior leadership has to work on it to make it more interactive. But if that goes on uh, in a well organized way, so that will definitely help employees to come up with their ideas, and that will help teams to work on their goals. If the high level goals of the organization is communicated properly in these kind of town halls, so that definitely helps. We see it working.
Yeah. And I think I would like to add my perspective to that as well. I feel town hall is a very, very important tool to have a connect between management and an employee, especially when an organization grows. Because I've been part of an organization which has grown a lot in last 2 to 3 years. So my management, who was approachable to me via Slack till 2 years back, might not be equally approachable. I'm not saying they're not approachable, but might not be. So when a town hall happens, right, it's a very, very open forum for management to talk in a very non-formal way to brief company about long-term goals, short-term goals, objectives, mission, and vision. And I think it also provides a in what I feel is it provides a sense of unity, right? When the especially in a smaller organization, when you all get together in a place and hear your leaders talk, and connect to that, and in the end you get a chance to ask your questions. I think it also gives you a sense of unity and a sense of, team, being part of a team. So I think it's a very important tool. Having an open house or having a town hall is a very, very important tool to communicate a company's vision and mission to employees. And I think the new employees who joined recently are specially benefited by that. This is from my personal experience. Whenever we've had a town hall in our organization, the new joiners have been particularly, excited about it. So in the end, I think we have we have only time for one question left. We have precisely 7 minutes left, and I think we have 5 minutes for to take one last question. Uh, Nupur Pathak is asking, what would be your top three tips to ensure accountability that is clear and meaningful? And I think this is from the perspective of a leader, or maybe of as a part of team. What would be your top three tips to ensure accountability that is clear and meaningful as a leader? Okay, great. Thank you for clarification, Nupur. As a leader, what would be your top three tips to ensure accountability that is clear and meaningful? So Anil and Vikram, maybe both of you can answer this quickly. Anil, starting with you.
Okay, I'll start with picking up on the town hall topic though. I have slightly different opinion. If you're not clear, let me put it this way. Every organization, every leader, every team writes their goal, missions, vision on paper, right? Which ends up with every single employee in the organization. Now, if by reading that you are not clear, then be curious about it and ask for clarity through questions at any forum you can get your hands on. It could be a town hall, it could be a Slack message, it could be writing an email back to your CEO, it could be writing an email or giving a phone call to your manager and just asking, hey, you know what, I don't understand what this means, right? So it should be curiosity driven, again, bottoms up, not top down, where you wait for certain event to happen and you hold on to that question for to be asked in that event. I think you will be juggling with confusion for a longer time than you should. So, be curious, and whatever platforms are at your disposal, including Town Hall, which is a great platform, leverage it to get that clarity. And speaking of clarity, my top three tips are ensure accountability that is clear and meaningful. Meaningful is always about how an individual associate themselves with that accountability, right? So, for example, if you ask a Formula One driver to probably, drive a truck, right? They may not find it meaningful. So it may not be a good idea to give tasks or goals or outcomes to people to which they cannot relate to. Rather, play on their strengths and give them something that they can relate to, and that's when it becomes more meaningful. Something that they aspire to do, something they can relate with their previous experience, current experience, or future aspirations, something that they can think about or they may enjoy, rather than just throwing some stuff at them and not even knowing whether they like it or not. So that would be my tip. Try to make it as relatable as possible and still keeping it aligned with the outcome that you want. Accountability that is clear, break it down. Leave, try to leave no room for ambiguity when it comes to drive accountability. If there is an ambiguity, and I said this before, data always speaks the language you want it to speak. So ambiguity helps the cause there. So leave no ambiguity. If it is a bigger task with a lot of ambiguity, break it down to smaller tasks without any ambiguity. And that's the only way to create clear accountability, in my opinion. Vikram, what do you think?
I think so. Leaders play a vital role with accountability percolating down. So you need to have the clear mandates on what you're pursuing with. The vision has to translate with the clear outcomes. The outcomes have to translate with the clear mandates for each level, the program level, the team level, in terms of metrics by design, what they need to pursue with. And also these kind of effectiveness will be enhanced if all these things are on a pull-based mechanism. The pull-based mechanism would be some kind of a tool, ALM tool, some kind of dashboards that you can display and monitor that progression. Third aspect would be to bring the customer very much near to that, so that you have regular touch points on the feedback. So basically involvement of a customer is very vital, and not only what you're pursuing with the other part of, I do not know what we are doing. So bring the customer to validate how we are doing it, and also build the system so robust so that you don't have to chase the people. The dashboards, the metrics, the KPIs speak for themselves. That is what is all about, data and clarity, no ambiguity in that. Okay.
This kind of validates why I have 10 different dashboards bookmarked. So yes, data is powerful. I think. Thank you, everyone. I think I apologize to participants whose questions could not be taken up, but we are against the time and we are at the top of the hour at this time. And Priyank has joined us back. He's on camera. So Priyank, before I conclude, do you want to say something?
Maybe you just conclude and I'll pick it from there.
Okay. So I would just like to thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Vikram, for being here and giving us your time on a Friday morning. And thank you, everyone who joined and asked us questions. I hope we could bring some good insights to this topic. Thank you, Mr. Goyal. I don't want to call you RC Goyal. Thank you, Mr. Goyal, for your feedback. Um, uh, Priyank, over to you.
Thank you, Megha, and thank you, Vikram, Deepak, Anil, and Anu as well. She is
Yes.
making attempt to join back, installing the application, and internet is a problem at her end, and electricity has created such a mess. So the wonderful conversation. I just want to thank everyone who attended it, especially on a Friday. This was quite a risk. The chapter which we run as in Jaipur chapter, we had a lot of permutation combination made, and we said like let's see how we can bring in corporates to the conversation, right? Because weekend is like a weekend club, right? You know what I mean. Whereas Monday to Friday is more of a corporate thing. So we have made an attempt and to bring in more involvement of corporate, and then how the journey begins from here, having both the parties joining in the conversation. So amazing insights. I just want to add, in the tribal culture, if you read the tribal culture, there is no accountability. There is 100% autonomy. So if you create, an indicator basically where you have accountability and autonomy at the other side, the tribal cultures are more towards autonomy and they do what they like and they call it freedom. Whereas in accountable cultures, it's not generally tribal, but it becomes more bureaucratic if you go extreme of it in the left side. So that's all what I wanted to add, but was amazing conversation. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining in today. And we look forward to have you more often as in different capacities. And if you have any interest to speak in our upcoming events, please fill in the form and invite your colleagues as well to fill in the form and show the intent and circulate the knowledge all across. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thanks.
Happy Friday. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the audience, and thank you for the panel members. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Pleased to be here.